down to Biscayne.
Yikes. 5 on the floor, ride for my dogs. Where here's the thing, you can check the score. Hustle hard, couple scars, wearing bubble frogs. Just like Butler said, you in trouble, y'all. Kept the floor playing, got it all banned. Y'all seen the block, stop with one hand. And Pat we trust, Inspire have the guts. We're here to bring the heat, y'all can hang it up.
Welcome to 5 on the Floor, a daily insider show on the Miami Heat and the NBA, featuring Ethan Skolnick, Greg Sylvander, and Alex Toledo, plus others from the 5 Reasons Sports Network.
All right, welcome back to 5 on the Floor after the All-Star break. Here is today's floor plan. I'm Ethan Skolnick. You can follow me at Ethan J. Skolnick at 5 Reasons Sports. We got the birthday boy, Alex Toledo. You can follow him at Tropical Blanket. We've got Brady Hawk. You may have heard of him. You can follow him at Brady Hawk 305. And we got Greg Sylvander. Who are you? We haven't seen you for a while. The floor plan tonight, this was a season in need of a moment, I thought. And it took until after the All-Star break, but you got it tonight. All the fire, the emotion that sometimes has been missing from this team over the course of the season, it's been building a little bit. They were playing better entering the All-Star break. Obviously, they made some additions, but tonight it all came out. And there's a lot to unpack. Like, we have some nights where we're like, what's the play of the night? What's the insurance play of the night? We've got about 50 of them. I mean, we talked about some in the first half. There was the Jovic, pass as a starter and the lob. There was the Duncan block at the end of the game. There was, and we're going to talk a lot about Bam, right? There was the Bam turnaround jumper and pulling right into it. So many plays made by so many guys tonight. But obviously what everybody's going to be talking about, other than the injury to a core player, which we'll get into as we go forward, is the fight and the way that the team responded to it during it and after it. And I'm going to start here because we'll get into that, the repercussions of it, short-term, long-term, who may miss time, because I do think the league is going to look at this. It's a weekend, makes it a little bit of a different story. By the way, we'll take your comments because we're on live today, and we'll put them up over the course of the show and respond to them later on. I do think the league will look at it, and there may be some other suspend. We'll see. We'll see what the suspensions are. We're going to talk through that. But I'm going to start here with the Rocky Sports Gamer of the Night, because this moment is wasted if they blow the game. With all of the things that happened tonight, getting up big, 19 points, squandering the whole thing, ended up tied at the half, and then, everything that happened after. If this guy, and we'll lead into it with the Rocky Sports Gamer of the Night, doesn't do what he did down the stretch, this would be a much different postgame show.
And now on 5 on the Floor, it's time for the Gamer of the Night, sponsored by Rock Esports Center, the place to eat, drink, and play all day. Host your next birthday party with them. Located at 15305 South Dixie Highway in Palmetto Bay, they've got a 5,500 square foot state-of-the-art center equipped with all the high-end power. Play all-day passes available for just $25, but if you mention 5 Reasons, it's just $20. So mention 5 Reasons or 5 RSN. You get to play all day for $20. And now, the Gamer of the Night.
You know how a captain responds to what happened between Jimmy Butler and Najee Marshall and all that? You respond the way that Bam Adebayo responded down the stretch of this game. 24 points, 7 rebounds. I don't even care about the stats. Greg, he made every play that needed to be made at the end of that game. He was kind of invisible in the first half. Mm-hmm. Talked about him coming out of the All-Star break slow last year also. That extended for a while. But he made every play. He made every play defensively. He covered up for some of Tyler's mistakes. We'll get into that. A couple of times that he made things look better than maybe they should have. But just the decisiveness, the force. He took over the game. And we've seen him take over games before with Jimmy out. But there's more significance to this one, especially in light of the circumstances of the Boston game earlier, where people felt he didn't step up. Tonight, he stepped up.
Playoff-like atmosphere. They get in a scuffle. Bam's in the middle of it. So, he's not shying away from any of that, and I like that. I like to see the team rally around each other. Shout out to Nico for getting in the middle of that. But Bam, then he did it on the basketball court. It wasn't just about like this scuffle and who's a tough guy. He actually translated that into plays, winning plays, a lot of stuff on the defensive end. You'd love to see it. Like, this is the type of game, 11 of 18, the efficiency you need. He got his rebounding total up after in the first half. I think he maybe only had 1 or 2 rebounds. So to get to 7 is good. I just feel like he put his imprint on the game, and that's what you need from a guy like him, to step up, rally the troops. I hope that nothing becomes of him coming off the bench, and we'll talk about that a bit later. I don't know if he was one of the culprits there and what we need to watch for there, but tonight he showed up. He complimented Jimmy. This is their best 2 guys. They went into a hostile environment in New Orleans and got a really impressive victory with some statement stuff going on, considering the moments that took place.
Brady, I'm going to transition to Jimmy, obviously, and he's a huge story. And now we've got the clip of him egging on the crowd there. This is the new TJ Warren moment. He's had a bunch of these, right? The Al Horford timeout moment. Like, there's new memes that are going to be created from this. But before we get to what Jimmy was doing earlier and in the game, which was significant, I thought this is the best he's looked all year coming out of the break. And after what he's been going through emotionally, you didn't quite know what he was going to look like. He looked like that. It was an extension of the way that he was playing prior to the hiatus. But I just want to mention one more thing on Bam before we get to the specifics of Jimmy and the fight and all this. I think this matters a lot. Like, I think the fact that Jimmy gets into that situation, his teammates have his back. Jimmy was not on the floor in the Boston game for what happened with Duncan and all that. But this happens with Jimmy. And then we talk about it. Not only does his teammates have his back, but Bam, the guy who's supposed to be carrying the flag of this franchise with Jimmy during this Jimmy era, this Jimmy run, gets them to the finish line tonight. He took up for his guy tonight in a significant way. He didn't shrink. So I just want you to get into some of the basketball stuff on Bam, and then we should pivot a little bit to Jimmy as we go forward.
Yeah, this is a tough game to talk basketball just because it was literally pure emotions. Like, it's as much as there was things that Bam was doing, and there was an uptick for him offensively. He started getting the ball in the mid post a little more. He started letting the jumper fly a little more. But he was just playing off pure emotions. Like, you saw like the last time, and everybody dialed in on the fact that he didn't stick up for Duncan in that Boston game. He was in the mix today. Like, he was right in the mix. He was getting everybody. He was right in it on the top of the emotions. And then when everything started to cool down, he got his guys in check, and he pretty much settled everybody on the bench and came out, and he fired immediately. Like, the first play was Bam in the middle of that floor, knocking down a jumper over the top. And it's like, okay, like you said it, this is what a captain does. Like, this is what he does at that point in the game. And as much as he was great offensively in that second half, I think that was the best game I've ever seen him play defensively. And we're talking about a guy that is probably the best defender in the league, obviously in our opinions, but arguably, the best defender in the league. Saying that was his best defensive game, like, I'm serious when I say that. Like, the stuff he was doing at the start of that game with the way that he was kind of playing on the weak side and coming over for blocks, but he was kind of helping and kind of forcing misses for Zion around the rim. And then the on-ball stuff, everything along the lines. Like, I just thought he was just everywhere defensively. Like, he was even at the times when things weren't going his way. So he was big. He definitely deserves the gamer of the night. Jimmy, on the other hand, before all the chaos, before all the fighting and everything, as you said, looked great. Like, he was absolutely clicking 8 free throw attempts in the first quarter, getting to the spots he wanted to. When they dip under, he was shooting from 3. He was kind of playing his brand of basketball. The other thing, we talk about Bam defensively, Jimmy defensively in that first half was clicking. Best defensive game he's played all season. And that's usually what we see around this time of year. This is when he kind of seeds that uptick. But I've been saying it for the last 2 years that I think I would joke around and say they need a fight. I would be like, like kind of joking, but it's not really a joke. Like, they needed this. Like, they need that type of fire because this team feeds off this. Like, did you see Eric Spoelstra after the fight happened? Like, he is like literally stomping his foot into the ground 500 times up and down that court because he wanted this win. Like, he really did. So it's like they thrive off of this energy. And I'm glad you hit on the part, Ethan, because this isn't Duncan and Jaylen Brown. As much as we're talking about Duncan and it was a fun story, this is Jimmy Butler in the mix. This is something happening with your star player, the guy that leads you through playoff run after playoff run. You need to have that guy's back. And that's what they did in this game. And they stepped up for him with Thomas Bryant at the scores table, get that man a game ball. Nikola Jovic having his back. You know, you have all these guys in the mix. It's just like you needed this type of game to kind of bring together, but the basketball is right behind it because they put it on, performed on the court as well.
Yeah, that's the big thing, Alex. I mean, it is, and none of this means anything if they don't win it. And then you're talking about them blowing the 19-point lead, and all that. And we promise we are going to get to the scuffle right here as we go forward. But I want to close the loop on Jimmy's play here a little bit, Alex, before he went out, because Brady mentioned it. It's the defense that jumped out tonight with him. I mean, the offense, we know when he's locked in that he's going to find certain spots, and I was surprised they didn't put Herb Jones on him more, honestly. I thought that they would try to bother him with a little bit more length. He had his way. I thought that, obviously the starting lineup from Spo worked. I mean, we talked about it a lot before the game, but they were plus 20 with Jimmy. In the first half when he was actually playing, when he was off the floor, that's when they struggled in the first half. But the starting lineup obviously freed him up to do certain things, and maybe that was part of the point of it. It also freed up Bam to be able to guard Zion, because we talked about Jovic being overmatched by Valanciunas, but at least there was a body there on him, even though Jonas was doing things. But we just talked so much about Jimmy, but it is about Jimmy. Like when he's going to guard like that and create turnovers, get in the passing lanes, they're different.
Yep. And I know you guys have already talked about them enough, but to me, like, Jimmy and Bam are all like are just, their two best players tonight were the reasons you pulled out this game, right? Obviously, Jimmy before he was ejected from the game, and then Bam afterwards. And Bam, like Brady said throughout the whole game, I thought he had a great defensive game, and somebody brought up in the comments how he was kind of getting out rebounded in the first half, and he stepped that up big time in the second half. Leif brought that up earlier as well, and I agree. But as far as the defensive end, I thought Bam was fantastic. And to your point, Ethan, Jovic, he was dealing with some trouble there with Jonas, and I feel like it's a big difference between Jovic having to deal with Valanciunas and with Brook Lopez, who was out there spacing a lot, right? Whereas Jonas is gonna get down there, get good post position, play physical, all that. And they were just kind of like, okay, that's a problem, but we're going to take that because we need Bam to be out there on Zion and taking everything away from the rim from Zion. Not that you shut him down completely, but I haven't even looked at Zion's stat line for tonight, but I thought they did a great job on him, right? Like there's some of those that Zion is just going to get because he's a force of nature, physical beast, all of that. But I thought Bam did a great job. 9 of 22. I mean, that's great. For a guy who's pretty much all of his shots are coming in the paint, and a guy who pretty much can just score over dudes, even if the paint defense is there, that's fantastic. And it matches the eye test because I thought Bam was great there. I thought he did a great job plugging up the holes on defense. And like you said, Jimmy was just kind of doing his thing, going back to that high-level defense that Jimmy plays where he's gambling out there. And, man, that is – when you see it, it's like, oh, man, they've been missing this, man. Like, they really miss that extra level of defensive playmaking because it's like you can be on a string throughout an entire possession and then a team makes a tough shot. But if you're out there and, like, those occasional – steals, getting out in the passing lanes and just timing it right, getting the easy transition buckets, galvanizes the team. And it's, I really do think, and we've talked about it plenty, it's the indicator that Jimmy's trying. And I think we were seeing this stuff ramp up before the All-Star break. And, it's that time of year, folks. Springtime is almost here and Jimmy is looking good. Like they're a different team when they play into that defense, into offense identity. And I really do think that's what set them apart tonight. They allowed 37 points combined to the Pelicans in the second half. I really thought like that's kind of it right there. And then the other huge number tonight was the Heat hitting about 45% of their threes and the Pelicans hitting 25. So they kind of played right into the Heat's game plan. It's like, we're going to shut off all of those paint points for you and, get those threes up. And the Pelicans just frankly don't have that many shooters. I think it played right into the Heat's plan.
And to force Jordan Hawkins ended up taking 17 shots. And again, McCollum was out, Ingram was out. We need to state that they were a little bit shorthanded tonight for sure. But I'm not going to take anything away from it. You're talking about hostile environment, so let's get to it. When we'll get into it, this is going to be the Aggressive Insurance by Lynette play of the night.
And now it's time for the Insurance by Lynette Play of the Night, sponsored by InsuranceByLynette.com and A Aggressive Insurance Agency. You can reach out to our friend Lynette at 954-581-8800. That's 954-581-8800 or InsuranceByLynette.com. That's InsuranceByLynette.com with 2 N's and 2 T's. Your best play for auto insurance, homeowners insurance, condo insurance, life insurance, or a retirement program. Reach out to Lynette at InsuranceByLynette.com.
And we appreciate Lynette being on playback with us all night and here as well. Comment here from Joseph Blanco before we go forward on this. After Zion's free throw, after Jimmy got ejected, he never scored again. So on one side, you had Bam taking over. You had Zion shrinking. That was pretty much the story of the game there. But let's get to the scuffle itself because and then we'll obviously get to the significant injury, which we are going to handle here before the end of the show. Jimmy gets ejected. Thomas Bryant steps up. I guess he got his minutes tonight. Najee Marshall obviously was in there. Alvarado was in there. Alvarado was shadowboxing like our guy Brian Fonseca over by the tunnel afterwards. Jimmy's egging on the crowd. I will say this, Brady, it's not that Spo is angry. Spo loves this shit. This is exactly what he wanted for this team at this time, and it's almost validation for Jimmy going full tilt. It's like Jimmy cared tonight. And this is why you want him to play with this edge, because he played with this edge, and then obviously it extended into something else. And then we saw guys like Jaquez and Caleb, who we're going to talk about a little bit, who I thought both did a really good job defensively down the stretch, but as well as Haywood did. But I guess let's get to what the repercussions of this could be as we try to first. Let's try to describe it. Can somebody sort of say, we haven't had a chance to review the whole thing. Does anybody want to kind of get into exactly what happened here? Greg, what did you see? And do you think Jimmy will face further punishment or anybody else will face further punishment?
It's tough because Zion got fouled and it looked like he felt like he was fouled harder than he actually was and overreacted a little bit. And then that created the scuffle. It did look like Jimmy made the initial contact and then there was more forceful contact coming back at him. The thing that I'm worried about is that it had to do with neck or like above the whatever the shoulders. So like that may come into play. I hope that there's no suspensions because that would be super whack. But then after that, it just turned into an all out like Jimmy trying to chase him down, didn't get his hands on him. Everybody holding everybody back. And then a side scuffle happens. I'll never forget when a side scuffle happened with Keith Askins when the Hawks and the Heat played in the playoffs many years ago. Side scuffles are bound to happen. This was another one where Alvarado was on the side by Bryant. I did not get to see what fully happened, but it appears as if maybe a punch was thrown. And we'll see what happens there. And then, there's the bravado in the tunnel and stuff like that. But you know what? To your point, all that is good for this team. They need a reason for being, and this is a reason for being. You're going to slap them in the face, they're going to show up. And so I think ultimately, even if there is a game or somebody left a bench and is suspended, or somebody suspended a game like Jimmy is, although I think that they're going to probably just let this one go. It's worth it.
So just for people who don't know the schedule, they have 2 days off. They have the weekend off. They're actually supposed to fly to Sacramento tonight. And then they get the back-to-back with Sacramento and Portland. We'll have your Moleskine notebooks ready for you. In fact, we may give one of those away. I saw it's $19 on Amazon. So I think that's going to be a gift for somebody on our off-the-floor Discord server. We'll give away those notebooks that Woj loves so much. But I don't think there's going to be additional punishment. And I'll have to look at it again. But Bam was the one I was worried about, to be honest. Coming off of the bench, and I don't think that he's going to get sanctioned for what actually happened. It looked like he was far enough back. Sometimes they can be a little ticky-tack about, being a half foot ahead. It looked like the Heat assistants did a good job of keeping those guys on the bench at least long enough. So we'll see. They've been through this before. Remember the Denver situation a couple of years ago, obviously with Markieff Morris and with Jokic. So I don't think there'll be additional punishment here. I mean, Brady, Alex, from where you saw, do you think we're looking at anything? Because I mean, you don't want to be without Bam against Sabonis on Monday. I'll just say that. Or obviously Jimmy against a very good Sacramento team in their building.
I was gonna say that. I mean, I'm not sure exactly what the rule is because I know it's about clearing the bench, but like, what is the limit there? Because like even like Jovic and Thomas Bryant toward the scorers table, like that's not clearing the bench, right? Like that's still on the sideline, so I don't think that's involved there. But like, I don't know. There was a lot of little things. It felt like it was something that like the refs were just going to focus on the main four when something that chaotic goes down.
Yep.
That like, okay, we'll circle back later for the rest. So that's I think the thing that we're all going to keep an eye on to make sure that doesn't swoop in on a guy like Bam. But I mean, they just handled the main things and then obviously let them finish it. But I mean, hey, they'll take that, even that little minor edge, because they were not winning that game without Bam. If they threw Bam out as well,
oh man, it would have been over.
like so that was kind of an edge.
Well, especially because she didn't have Thomas Bryant available to jump in there and take Bam's minutes. And Orlando Robinson was actually not available tonight either. So you were kind of out of bigs. K-Love was having to do everything himself. I see this comment from Gio here, and I kind of agree. That's the one concern. I don't think it's Jimmy. I think it's Bam. And the comment is Bam took a couple steps onto the court. The only thing I'm nervous about. And so we'll see. And again, the officials the league will look at it. What's that?
I'm a little bit unsure, man. I mean, I'm not. As far as like people who stepped out onto the court, I didn't really see that part, so I don't know about that. But as far as like the actual fight, I don't know what the rule is, but hands were on necks, multiple hands on multiple necks, and then Alvarado threw a punch, and then the fact that it turned into like a second and third scuffle, like I wonder if the league is gonna do something about it, where like one guy from each team gets suspended. I mean, it could be. I mean, I don't know if I'm crazy, but like, could it be three guys if it's Marshall, Jimmy, and Alvarado, all the guys who basically put their hands on somebody else, get suspended? I don't know if that's like a lot. I know it's not David Stern's league anymore.
Sometimes they say as long as the ejection occurs, sometimes they'll let it go. I do think, and I know this is crazy, but I do think when it happens matters. And over the weekend, I kind of feel like the league just might throw this one under the rug.
You're saying it's a Friday news dump?
Right, exactly. Let everybody talk about Golden State and the Lakers on Monday morning again, and just let that be the end of it. I mean, thankfully, Steve Kerr just got the biggest per year extension in history, right? He just beat out Spo, so that was kind of the Friday news dump. Before that, I think most of our viewers here say just fines, no suspensions, and I'm not going to read that comment that just came in on the screen. So we'll go forward with that. All right. I do want to, before we get to the injury report here, which is significant, we have to get into it. But I just wanted to comment on a couple of the other role guys that played tonight, because obviously it wasn't just Bam, and some of these guys made major contributions. I mean, K-Love was 1 of 6, but he did have 8 rebounds in 17 minutes and really competed. I thought Duncan 6 of 14, 5 of 11 from 3. We talk about how he struggled a little off the bench. He may not be on the bench on Monday. We'll see. 17 points tonight, and also Duncan. He gets in the middle of these things, man. Like he's been on one lately. Like we talk about salty Tua with the Dolphins. Like he's been salty Duncan lately. Like, and with the exception of the interview he did with Brady the other day, which people should check that out on our Off the Floor as well. Caleb, I thought defensively, Caleb really performed well in the fourth quarter. Like we talked about it, Greg. It's kind of like him trying to find his role. Like sometimes we talk about on playback, we're not exactly sure that he knows what he's supposed to be doing out there with certain groups here. But the one thing he can do that they will take anytime is guard his ass off. If he'll just do that, Like, I feel like enough of those little, layups around, those weird layups that he takes and all the rest of that, the
Move
slashing
off
against the
ball and
closeouts.
guard his ass off.
That's it. Like, just do that, like he did at the end of the game, and I think they'll be effective. Or at least important for them. I thought Highsmith had some good moments defensively as well, and actually made a couple of big shots there at the end. And then let's talk about Jovic real quick here, Brady, Alex. Let's let you guys jump in on that. He played 21 minutes. He got multiple stints in the first half. In the second half, he had some really good moments. Yes, I did fix my mic. Thank you. The second half, he had some really good moments, and then he had the Shaqtin' a Fool moment and all that kind of stuff. Brady, Alex, your thoughts on Jovic's performance and whether he should continue to start?
Well, I'll circle back to the game in a second, but I'll say the starting part, he 100% needs to start now moving forward, because the injury we're going to hit on after this next segment is a big part of it. Terry Rozier still being injured is a big part of it. They have less guys now that need the ball in their hands. Nikola Jovic is in a prime position now to be in that spot. He just is. And I looked at a game like this, I thought there were certain points. We say it over and over. He's a guy that needs to have the ball in his hands. He just does. Like there was moments when, and I'm not even saying like Tyler Hero needs the ball in his hands or Jimmy or Bam needs the ball in his hands. I'm saying like Kevin Love. Like, look at the role that Kevin plays when he's in the offense, when he's the hub at the top of the key. There was the play which was another one, Ethan, that we were talking about, could have been the play of the night at the time, but it was Jovic Tyler sets the back screen for Jimmy. Jimmy goes around it, Jovic over the top, and it's a lob for Jimmy. And it's like, those are the actions that Love usually has with Jimmy, because they put him in those spots. And it's like, you got to utilize Jovic in that way to be able to kind of maximize his ability, maximize his playmaking, maximize all of that. So to answer your question, yeah, like I've been a proponent of him starting no matter what, because I think he's a 20-year-old that is going to have down games. He's going to have a 3-point game like he had today, but you have to just roll with the punches a little bit. Not to say that on a night like tonight, roll with the punches, but you got to roll with it a little bit to kind of, through the bad games, let him figure it out. And now, he's going to be in a position where they're going to need him even more. So I thought he was fine. And the last thing I'll say, because I should have hit on this earlier, I thought he was really good defensively. Like I just did. Like I thought there were certain moments when the rotations, this is a team that I thought he did not have an easy matchup. Like he had a tough matchup for him specifically. Like going out the gate and guarding Valanciunas with that type of physicality and the size that he's dealing with. And I thought he stood strong in the post. Like Valanciunas got some buckets on him, but like he made it really tough for him. And then there were times I thought he was active with his hands and that he was good on rotations, and he's not as handsy as he once was. I thought he's just improved defensively. So 100%, they got to keep him in this role and just keep letting him learn.
I actually want to go to you after this, because I want to work this stuff in together a little bit. So let's get to it. Let's get to the Eric Rubenstein injury report.
And now it's time for the official 5 on the Floor injury report, sponsored by our friend Eric Rubenstein, the personal injury attorney. Born and raised in Lauderdale, Florida, lives in Miami, went to St. Thomas. He's a South Florida guy and a huge Miami Heat fan. But the important thing is he can help you get your money that you deserve when something happens to you. So reach out to our guy, Eric Rubenstein. Again, ericrubenstein.com, or ask about me, I got you, on Instagram. And now, the injury report.
Sorry about that. I'm seeing some of the comments here. Duncan Lambier Robinson, Duncan Mahord Robinson, some of that stuff that's out there. All right, let's get to the serious part of the night here. I'll read this comment from Mike T, because it's kind of funny, and then we'll get to the injury report, which is not so funny. Alvarado looks like the dude that hangs out at the basketball court in Miami Lakes. Yeah, right near Schuler's Steak too, that nobody wants to pick up because he's going to F up the vibe and take bleep way too serious. SMH
with long shorts on.
Long shorts. All right, let's get to the injury report. Tyler Hero started the game hot, made his first 4 shots, was in rhythm, and then he missed 10 of his next 12. And we were talking about it on, or 8 of his next 10, I believe. And we were talking about it on playback that, sometimes he's trying for like the kill shot when they're behind to kill a run, and it just doesn't go very well most of the time, and then kind of makes the run worse. And he made some mistakes down the stretch, but I also felt they needed to get him back in the game because they needed. But one of the things we haven't talked about here is I thought Eric Spoelstra had a rough first half, actually, rotation wise. I did not understand the no Bam, no Jimmy, no Tyler lineup, which essentially gave away the first lead. I don't think you can go out there without a playmaker. And I felt like he should have kept Jimmy out there with the 4 subs. When he did that later, they were better. And I also felt if you were going to have Jimmy out there, you should had to have Tyler out there. But anyway, they won the game, so we didn't end up focusing on it quite as much as we would have. But I never want to see that again. I never when they don't have Rozier, I don't want to see the no 22, 13, 14 lineups. It's just get one of them out there, okay?
Amen.
But Tyler at the very end of the game, did he hyperextend it? Did he bang it? Like what happened to the knee? And we know the narratives are going to start here again, but nobody wants to see him out for any extended period of time. What did Alex? What did you see there? What do we think?
Honestly, I'm not sure what happened, and I'm not sure. It didn't look great at first. And
Non-contact, right?
I'm not sure. That's the thing. I was trying to watch it there. We were watching it on playbacks. You know, you guys, as I always say, check it out if you haven't. Playback.tv/5RSN or download the app. Come hang out and watch the game with us for free. Anyways, I really couldn't tell. I didn't get a good enough chance to look at what happened, but they're going to miss Tyler a lot. And now it's going to be interesting to see what Spo does with the rotation. And yeah, I don't feel great about it though.
Well, all right. Here's the first part of this. There's the basketball part and there's the narrative part. Okay, so let's address the basketball part first. The basketball part is you're finally healthy, other than Rozier and Richardson. You've added DeLon Wright, who did not play tonight, but you figure that they're getting him up to speed so he can play. Terry made the trip. Josh made the trip. I heard Terry's going to play on the trip. Josh probably won't play on the trip. So I think you'll see Terry at some point here. I don't know if it's going to be the Sacramento game or it's going to be the Portland game or it'll be at the end of the trip, that nightmarish close to the trip in Denver. But I do think you'll see Terry at some point as we go forward here. And that mitigates this a little bit because you can unless you have a minutes restriction on Terry, you can basically put him right back in the starting lineup, right? So let me go with this. If they end up putting, let's say that Hero is out for the rest of the trip. And we're purely speculating at this point. Okay, so don't aggregate anything. We don't know. But if he's out for the rest of the trip, Alex, I'll go to you first on this again. What do you do? So if Rozier is healthy enough to play and start, you put Duncan back in at the 2.
Absolutely.
With what? With Jimmy, Jovic, put Caleb back on the bench? Is that the way you would go?
I don't mind that. Obviously, it depends on what happens with Jimmy as well. Like if he gets suspended. My preference is always to keep one more point of attack guy out there in the starting lineup. You know, not that I'm opposed to Jovic playing or anything like that, but that's just the way. You know, that's my personal preference. But I know I've become very familiar with that. With the layer of, well, if Jovic doesn't start, he's not going to play. So if starting means he plays, go ahead and start him. I just hope to see some DeLon minutes out there, and you know, maybe before Terry gets back, because this would be the time for him to really get some playing time. So I'm hoping we see some of him. But like you're saying, let's say if Terry were to be back next game, I wouldn't be surprised if DeLon didn't play because he could just kind of put Terry right into the role that Tyler was playing tonight. And I'm expecting Duncan to start. And now is the time, right? Now is the time to play DeLon. And if they hadn't signed DeLon, I would probably be advocating for Alondas Williams to play right now because it's 3 of your guards, guard room out there. So there's a lot of different ways that Spo can go about it. I don't know if like the Jovic starter thing has become like his answer to the 2 big lineups permanently. I don't know if it's just a regular season thing, and we kind of went over this a little bit in the rotations pod last week. But we've seen it. We've seen it done more recently, and I'm interested to see if it's a matchup based thing or not. But you can go about it a few different ways. I wish Spo would play 10 in the regular season, man. I always do that. It's my personal preference.
Not gonna do it.
I
Not
know,
gonna
but
do it.
a deep team, and you just
Not
signed
gonna do
DeLon,
it.
right? Like it would be nice to get him out there, get him acclimated, but whatever. Man.
He's
By the
he's
way,
playing 9 now, and he's playing 7.5 later. We know that. I guess the question then becomes if okay. So let's say Rozier's not back yet. Okay. So let's just take the Sacramento game. You don't really have to play two bigs against the Kings, right? They're not starting a big four.
no.
You got to control Keegan Murray. You got to control Fox. Obviously, you got to deal with Sabonis. So if Rozier is not back, it seems pretty simple. You just plug in Duncan for Tyler, right? And then that's it, right? You leave Caleb and Jovic out there with again, assuming Jimmy and Bam are not suspended, which that throws everything into flux if that's the case.
In that specific scenario that you just threw out, I think DeLon starts for Caleb. I think they put Duncan in for Tyler and DeLon in for Caleb, and they say DeLon go
Wow.
guard De'Aaron Fox. Like that's just, and if there was a matchup for it, it's that. By the way, before I discuss this more, like imagine what DeLon is thinking right now. He's like, this Heat culture thing is no joke. Like the first game he's watching on the sideline and just watching this go down, like that, I just can't imagine that. But
Well, Terry Rozier came to Miami and he thought he was still in Charlotte because they kept losing right over and over and over. So at least
But he
this is a
said at
better
least they didn't
introduction for
react the
DeLon.
same. He said they don't like losing here. They liked or they didn't care over there.
But I do. I
So
think that that's the way they would go. I think they would. I think that would be the type of scenario when you have all these type of guys out in that specific scenario, you could throw a guy like DeLon in the fire, especially because they're not asking him to do a lot offensively. Like they were probably not going to ask him to do a lot offensively anyway. But they like just go be annoying, go guard Fox. And as he said at practice the other day, like that's literally his whole career what he's been asked to do. Like randomly, like we talked about that Hawks series a few years ago against Miami. Like he wasn't playing that whole season. The Hawks just told him against the Heat, they're like, go make Tyler's life difficult. That's what they told him. So it's a similar scenario. Like he's done this before. So I think it's possible. I think it's possible he could start.
he was actually their most efficient guard in that series against the Heat too, offensively, even with the other guards that they had. All right, so Greg, I guess let's get to the narrative part of this with Tyler. Because that's the other part of this. There's so many variables to all of this, and I know people are talking about Alondas Williams can play. I mean, the Heat have a lot of potential options that they can go with here, but we've discussed this over and over. This is a make it or break it year for Tyler Hero with the Miami Heat. Like it just is. We said he had to perform in the playoffs last year. He had the unfortunate situation. It just seems to be one thing or another, and we know Pitchfork's going to be out, and everybody's going to be like, okay, see again, see he's brittle, see he's this. I tend to attribute these things to freak injuries. I don't think it's that he's not conditioned. When I talk about a guy being injury prone, it's because a guy is not in condition, doesn't put in the work to get conditioned. Those kind of guys are frustrating. Like if Zion is injured a lot, it's his fault. Okay, like I don't think right. Like I don't think it's Tyler's fault.
No, he's working his
It's
ass
his
off.
fault when he makes bad turnovers or he takes bad shots to try to end runs. But this whole thing, we see this here in the comments, Mr. Glass.
It's not his fault.
Hyperextending a knee, stepping on a foot, diving for a loose ball, like this is shit that happens on the basketball court. But you and I both know that's not how it's going to be portrayed.
No, and unfortunately, although it's just kind of freak stuff, what happens is that as you add all that up, eventually, if you don't get a playoff run, because all this doesn't matter. If he's healthy in the playoffs and he plays well in the playoffs, then no one cares what happens in the regular season. He'll be here. So availability in the playoffs is what we're all looking for. And so we still have time to see that. So I'm not getting overly making firm declarations on his health yet. Like, some people were saying he walked to the bench or walked back to the locker room and looked fine. So let's just wait and see what they say and wait for him to play in the playoffs. And we know it's a make or break year. So, but that make or break was always going to be about what he does in the playoffs. So for me, lay off Tyler. Let's just have him well for the 16 game stretch in the postseason.
Here's what I hope, and then we'll close. We appreciate everybody joining us on the live tonight, by the way. We're going to try to go live on all the road games the rest of the way. The home game's a little trickier because Brady, Alex, and I are at the games. We want to go straight at the buzzer. So, but Greg may do some of those as well. We're gonna see how that goes with guys like Brian and Sean and Eternal and others, Matt, who've been in the mix here with us this year. This is what I hope, though. Tyler knows the narratives. Tyler also knows that if Duncan comes in right now and starts lighting it on fire again as a starter, which he was doing before he got put on the bench, that noise is going to get louder. He probably will, because Duncan's kind of on one right now. I just hope he doesn't rush it, honestly. And I know fans are going to go the other way. He needs to get back on the court. I just hope if he did injure himself in some way tonight, I hope he doesn't rush it. Because you're right, the playoffs are what matter for him. They are. And they have enough bodies to carry them forward to the playoffs. But ultimately, his future is going to be determined by what happens from about April 15th forward this year, from about tax day forward. All right. Thanks to everybody for all the comments tonight. We appreciate it. Make sure you sign up for the Discord off the floor. Make sure that you check out our next watch party. It's going to be at Rock Esports. We mention that all the time, Rock Esports Lounge in Palmetto Bay. We're actually going to do the 2K tournament prior to the game this time. It's actually 8 o'clock start against OKC. So as we get closer to that game, that's a big game. So get the 2K tournament out of the way, because that's going to be a tough game for the Heat under any circumstances, playing against Shea and the rest of them in that building. But we're going to have some fun beforehand. So check it out. Thanks to Greg. Thanks to Brady. Thanks to Alex. Thanks to Rock Esports, insurancebyLynette.com, and Eric, Rubenstein.com. We'll be back tomorrow. Have a good one.
Thank you for listening to the 5 on the Floor on the 5 Reasons Sports Network. After all, someone needs to listen to my dad.